Good morning and welcome to the ENTEQ Technologies PLC Interim Results Investor Presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time by the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Just simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company will review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it is appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I'd like to submit the following poll. I'd now like to hand you over to Andrew Law, CEO. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Good morning to everyone. So I'm the CEO. We'll go to the next slide. So I'll, those who we haven't met before. I've been in the industry for 25 years. Worked for some of the major oil service companies. Worked for oil service corporate finance in a variety of roles. And I will introduce you to my colleague David as well.
Good morning, everybody. I'm David Steele. I've been with ENTEQ just over 10 years now. After that, I was with another service provider in the oil and gas sector many years ago now. I was with KPMG in London and held various senior management finance positions within technical and manufacturing companies.
Okay, so a quick, an overall kind of comment and the trading results, and then we'll kind of go into some more into more depth. Essentially, the company, we're at a very interesting point. We are focusing on our Sabre, which is our rotary steerable system, and we'll come into a lot more detail on it. But we're excited by it. It's a game-changing product, a disruptive product in a growing and more rewarding market. So the outlook for us is we've got a product that's pre-commercial. We've got field tests that we've got planned, and then we've got customer testing scheduled thereafter on the way to commercialization. And therefore, in terms of the context of how we're looking at these results, is what's important to us is managing our balance sheet, managing our balance sheet so that we can scale up the Sabre rental fleet when the time is right, so we can scale that to make the most of that market. So we'll come through the trading results in more depth, and so what we're looking at is the cash resources to be able to scale up that rental fleet. Okay, so some context to what ENTEQ is. We are in the drilling space, so we're in drilling and for geothermal, for methane abatement, and also for oil and gas. So we have within that space we do at the bottom left we do steering and control. So that's our rotary steerable, where we're actually steering which way the well is being drilled, left, right, up and down, staying within the formation for greater efficiency and greater production or greater coverage. Measurement, which is our legacy, our core product line, which is measurement while drilling, and that's around being able to know precisely where you are in the globe or in the earth, to know exactly what position you're in. And then what we have is communication, so being able to communicate between equipment downhole that's in the well, and then also sending that information uphole to the office, so that you can make real-time decisions. So if we look at those, we operate within the sort of geosteering space, which is approximately 11 billion market, and then we look at the rotary steerable, which is the one on the left. It's Sabre. It stands for Steer at Bit ENTEQ Rotary, and this is a truly disruptive technology to go into the rotary steerable market. The rotary steerable market is approximately 2 billion, and depending on which report you read, that's a conservative estimate actually. But it's a 2 billion market, and it's steadily increasing. And what I would say is it's increasing. The use of rotary steerables is increasing as the industries evolve, and then we have connectivity, which is around connection between products. What we've developed is being able to it's almost like a downhole Wi-Fi where you can plug in and connect our rotary steerable with customers' existing equipment. And the good thing is there they can be more efficient with the fleet when they introduce when we introduce the Sabre. And then we have our core MWD, which is for the high hot hole environment. But the important thing there is the market. When we look at the market for MWD, we're looking at 100 million, 150 million compared to that 2 billion of rotary steerable, which is one of the reasons why we're excited by that rotary steerable market. And what I should say is the MWD market, you're probably looking at 35 or 35 to 45 MWD systems providers versus rotary steerable, where you're looking at probably 10 or 12 on paper, and then probably 50% of that in reality. So there's far fewer competition or competitors in the rotary steerable space compared to the MWD space. So we see that it's a growing market, fewer competition, and a larger market. And we have a potentially very disruptive technology that we're looking to bring into the market. In terms of how ENTEQ is structured, we are. I'm currently today in our technology centre in near Cheltenham. The reason it's near Cheltenham is that this Cheltenham Gloucester area is one of the global hubs of expertise and knowledge for rotary steerables. So that's why we decided to position ourselves here, so that we have access to some of the best, if not the best, firmware engineers and engineering resource, as well as manufacturing resources, specialized manufacturing resources close by. So we do the technology development with in-house engineers, as well as engineering and specialist consulting engineers who work with us, and then we also we have other technology partnerships for developing, for example, the communication system and other technology systems. So in terms of manufacturing, our MWD is manufactured in the US. We have specialized high temperature manufacturing for electronics, and then in the UK, in the ENTEQ Technology Centre, that's where we do our assembly, or we will do our assembly when we're commercial. And then what we will have is repair and maintenance centres in key regions. And the good thing about that is they're very low capex for setting up those. It's one of the real advantages of our Sabre system is that it's low capex, and even the support network is quite low capex as well. In terms of distribution to international and US customers, all of our customers are directional drilling, do directional drilling services. We provide the equipment to those directional drillers. They could be oil and gas, they could be geothermal, and they could be methane abatement. Those are the areas that we provide our products to. We normally sell or rent our products to those customers. In the case of the rotary steerable, we will do that on a rental basis, because that model exists already in the industry. And one of the beauties of the rotary steerable, our Sabre, is that it expands our market beyond our normal customer base into assisting larger tier directional companies, filling their gaps, filling their product portfolio gaps. So it does expand the market quite considerably, and to a different customer base. So for those of you who haven't been with us before, the Sabre rotary steerable is, I'll come on to the history in a minute, but one of the most important things about the Sabre rotary steerable is it is a very simple, very neat, very modular design. It does not use pads or pistons to steer. What we use is a pressure differential that we control, and that creates a force that we can steer, so we can actually steer the drill bit left, right, up, down as needed. So the difference there is that we have fewer moving parts. We don't have hydraulic systems. We have a simpler system with potentially lower cost to operate and lower cost to essentially just lower cost to operate. So go to the next slide. So in terms of the market, it's a 2 billion market, it's global. There's general growth in adoption of or increased use of rotary steerable. The important point is that the rotary steerables don't need to be used on horizontal wells. There is actually quite a potentially large market of just maintaining verticality. So that's another interesting market that the Sabre could potentially get into as we evolve. The rotary steerable market, in terms of competition, is dominated by 2 main companies, and there are very few independent rotary steerable systems providers out there. On the international market in particular, that's where directional drilling companies need to have independent rotary steerable. They don't have access at the moment to many solutions. There are some, but not so many. And what we are confident, so A, there's a need for independent rotary steerable systems, and B, when we look at our Sabre, there's always a need for lower cost, simpler, lower cost to operate systems. So what we're seeing is certainly from the industry. We've been doing a lot of work on industry press, so industry engagement, and we've seen that recently with our presence at ENTEQ, which we'll come on to in a minute. So a bit of background to where we have been and where we are. So this background to the technology, Shell discovered this concept completely by chance. They were doing some drilling, and they had a blocked nozzle and noticed that they actually steered while they were drilling. So they took that from that concept, the discovery of the concept, through to a tool that worked downhole. And when I was recently at ENTEQ, I spoke and met with a couple of the engineers who were involved at that time, who witnessed the tool drilling and building angle at that time. That's an important point, because what we're doing is what we're going to do is prove. We're not trying to prove a principle. It's been proved. And if you liken that to the Wright brothers' first flight, that's proven that flight can happen. What we're going to prove is, and what we're aiming to prove is that our tool can fly as well. We'll come on to that in a second. So what we've done is we've taken that design and we've been steadily ruggedizing it, making it more suitable for the commercial environment. And essentially, that's not the piece at the bottom near the bit; it's the control system that controls that, and that's what we've been doing the work on. So we've been simplifying it, ruggedizing it, modular system that we've been developing. So we've got in the facility here, where I am in near Cheltenham, we've got the electronics in place. We've got the electronics we're going to use, and we've got we're in the process of assembling that, putting electronics into the hardware, so that we can then move on to the next phase, which is downhole drilling testing of our version of the tool in Norway in an independent test site. And that's industry standard practice, where with a new technology, you would run it in a drilling rig environment downhole, but before you go into commercial use. And that's where we are at the moment, and that's scheduled, I would say, within weeks rather than months, and that's the sort of next big thing that we're planning for and moving to. Okay, next one. Oh, so if you just go back, if you don't mind, sorry. Just on the, and then so once we've gone to Norway, we've got the we've got customer test partners lined up, the customer test partners we've been working with very closely are customers who have multiple rigs. They manage the entire drilling operation, and they're very willing and very willing to sort of test this tool and get it through to commercialization. And that's the nature of the agreement, is testing through to commercialization, and that's where we've got the agreement structured with those customers. So yes, so ADIPEC is the global trade show. It's in Abu Dhabi, and hence the name. And we've been doing a lot of work on industry awareness of the rotary steerable that's coming through. There's a strong level of interest from the local people, companies like ADNOC, Abu Dhabi National Company. Lots of interest from the independents. I said it's generally subjective and obviously subjective. So, but a general, certainly a very much of an acceptance of this new technology. So very much the industry seems to be very willing to, very interested in it. I'd say more so than last year. And then what we also showed was our complementary technology. So this kind of downhole Wi-Fi connection system, so that we can, so that there's quite a good interest in that as well. So in summary, from is the ENTEQ, we're focusing on the Sabre rotary steerable. We believe it's the right thing to do. It is a disruptive product in a market that needs it. So that's why we're focusing on it. In terms of the outlook, we've got the testing in Norway that's upcoming, and then we've got post Norway testing with customer tests, and then after that, our focus is on essentially being able to put that foot on the accelerator as much as we can to build up our rental fleet, so that we can be as commercial with as good a fleet as we can, whilst as soon as we can. So I hand over to David.
Right. Thank you, Andrew. Just to kind of set the scene, obviously all the figures I'll be talking about in the next few minutes relate solely to our core MWD division, our current division, because obviously the Sabre is pre-commercial. So the revenue, as you can see, significant increase in this time last year, which was primarily driven by the recovery in the North American market. The international market has been much slower to come out of the previous downturn. The key issue on the next line, the gross profit, is the margin right down at the bottom. As you can see, we're continually facing margin erosion, 37 this time last year, 35 H2 and 28 H1. Now this is reflective of what Andrew's already said. Our current MWD is, to be perfectly frank, more and more commoditized. We're operating in a very, very packed, competitive market, and therefore, the margins are reducing, and hence why we're focusing on the Sabre division, which will be much healthier margins. So the margin erosion, effectively two things: the reduction in the volume of the rental income, which is very high margin compared to this time last year, and also the increased number of electronic components that we've been selling. We've been selling more and more third-party components, and therefore the margins we get on that are obviously lower than selling our own XXT branded components. Moving on to the overheads, we're continually looking at reducing overheads. As you can see, we've taken out another $100,000 against where we were this time last year, and down from 1.8, which was the H2. So pleasingly, we've actually got a small positive EBITDA, and underneath that, you've obviously got the depreciation and the amortization charge. Moving on to the balance sheet, which comes back to the focus is generating cash to redeploy into the Sabre fleet. So the top line, where we've been absorbing cash, which has been our investment in the Sabre product up to the end of September. Moving down to the next line, the land and buildings. We own a 6-acre site in South Houston, and we're just basically not utilizing it to its full potential. So we're actively marketing that. We've actually put it to auction at the end of October, but it didn't meet reserve, and therefore we're continuing to market that. Coming back to the cash, we reported 1.8 at the end of September, but as you can see, the little asterisk at the bottom, when we actually released our results, the cash had bounced back to 2.5. So coming back to our land and building, when we get an acceptable offer, obviously we'll be coming back to make the appropriate announcements. Underneath those, we have very small now plant and equipment and rental fleet. The trade debtors, as you'd see, 5.4 on a turnover of under 5 million, is reflective of the competitive nature of the MWD market. So in the past, we've had to offer extended credit terms to get our MWD kind of revenue where we want it to be, but that is no longer happening. We're much more focused on cash generation from the MWD contracts much sooner than we have been in the past. And out of the 5.4, we've had 1 million unwind already so far in this second half, and the vast majority, over 95% of the remaining balance, will be converted into cash by the end of March 2023. Another focus is we're trying to reduce the inventory, to obviously convert that into cash. So the MWD sales team are very, very focused on selling from stock as opposed to purchasing to make up the kits that we sold before. Trade and other payables, the vast majority of that 1.6 has already been paid off, and I've already talked about the cash position. Coming back to the cash flow, obviously starting with the small EBITDA positive, we did absorb operational cash in the first half year, which comes back to my comment about offering extended credit terms, which are no longer happening. And then the big figure underneath that is the 1.1, which is this expenditure or the cash spend on the same product, Sabre product. So opened at the beginning of April with 4.8, closed on 1.8, and back to 2.5 as we speak now. So I'll hand back to Andrew at this stage.
Hi, thank you, David. So when we look at the market, and this, what we're showing here is just the oil and gas market, but we see that strong long-term market fundamentals. We see strong short-term market fundamentals, and then also we're quite encouraged by the geothermal potential, which is real, and then the methane abatement potential again, which is real. So we feel like we're in the right place and we've got the right products for that, and we feel like the market is there to support it. So go to the next slide. So if we look at what we have been doing is engaging with our industry to kind of prepare them for Sabre, which is what we've been doing, a lot of industry engagement. In the short term and long term, Sabre has definitely good market potential, and our priority is to manage that balance sheet so that we can essentially make the most out of Sabre, and then move towards full-scale Sabre expansion. We believe there's a real strong market there, and then keep developing technologies that kind of fit into that space. So that's our summary, and I think we'll move to questions now. Thank you.
Andrew, David, thank you very much for your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions just using the Q&A tab situated on the top right-hand corner of your screen. Andrew and David, we received a number of pre-submitted questions from investors, and I want to start off the Q&A session with these. The first one reads as follows, and it has several parts. In your interims, you refer to the initial fleet of the latest design of Sabre tools being built. The first part is, does this imply you are not expecting any more tweaks to the design following the Norway tests? How many units will be in the initial fleet? When do you expect to take delivery? And is the commercial model still to supply 2 units to the customer without charge, with payments being due once performance criteria are met? Okay.
All right. So first question is, are we expecting any more design tweaks? So what I would say is, what we've done a lot of testing. We've done downhole testing of our control system and our generator. So we're actually there will always be some tweaks that are needed, but we're I'd say we're quietly confident about what we've got, because we've got a known system from Shell that has been proven and that works. And the control system that we're using uses industry standard boards, literally off-the-shelf boards, as well as some proprietary boards as well. But the point there is we're using a control system that is used in, or a type of control system that is used in rotary steerables already. So on that regard, we're not actually inventing anything new in terms of the control system. We're using it's a good control system that we put a lot of work into. But the beauty is in the steering method. So there may be more tweaks. There will always be, we can always get better and better. But we've put a lot of work into the design, and we've put a lot of testing into it. I hope that covers that one. So how many units will be the initial fleet? So we've got an initial fleet of 6 tools that are being built, and then we're planning for scaling up and expanding that into the next fleet. We know that there will be some, like I say, design changes there, but we're building that kind of adaptability into that when we're ordering. So when do we expect to take delivery? I mean, we're taking delivery now of that. We've got a lot of it in already, and we're steadily taking delivery. So we'll have full systems ready shortly for downhole testing. Is the commercial model to supply the 2 units to customer without charge? What we've got is an initial field trial agreement that then moves into a customer a commercial agreement. So there's minimal charges initially, because we're working with welcoming and respectable customers who are wanting to try this out, and then we'll move into a commercial agreement thereafter.
Andrew, if I could just add that the commercial model with Sabre is a little bit different to the MWD. With MWD, our current division, we either sell or rent, and we get a very small repeat business on the MWD stream. With Sabre, we have actually 2 additional streams. So as long as in addition to the daily rental that we'll get, there's what's called a redress, a refurbishment fee. So at the end of each production run, the tool will then be taken out, stripped down, and modules replaced. This is the accepted industry practice. And with the current RSS tools, which are pad and piston based, that is a very expensive charge that our customers expect to pay. That is the redress fee. But with our modular system and a much lower cost of production, we can swap the modules and not necessarily massively undercut the current redress fee, but there will be regular repeat business on top of the daily rental. The third income stream, which is maybe not so large, is lost in hole. So
that's probably a bit commercially sensitive, David. So
okay. Well, basically two other income streams.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Perfect. Just moving on to the next one. Clearly, all investors want to know when the Norway test is. When will results be available, and when do you expect to make first deliveries to customers? What RNS dates are you working to?
Okay. So the Norway testing is all being well in weeks rather than months. We're managing our supply chain, so it depends on when at the moment our supply chain plan, and it's being updated every day, but it's still on track for doing it certainly within weeks rather than months. It is a development project, and we're limited to a sort of disrupted supply chain, so that's why it would be unwise to commit to a particular date until we got there. What I would say is when we do the Norway test and we have confirmation that the system is working, that is when we would issue an initial RNS to express that the system is working. and then we would follow that up later, probably two to 3 weeks later, with the full test results. So that's the plan that we're working to.
Perfect. Thank you very much. The next question asks, can you please talk us through your attempts to sell the Houston site, your current plans, if any, to sell it, and how do you intend to operate in Houston if a sale proceeds?
Yeah, basically, I think I've answered the first part of the question, and yes, we'll maintain a Houston presence, but we'll be looking for possibly a leasehold site. Therefore, we don't want to absorb any of the cash, but we will certainly be having a continuing with the MWD within the Houston area.
Perfect. That's great. Could you give us a bit more colour on how the ENTEQ Global Trade Show went?
Yeah, it was. No, I've given a bit of colour, but I'd say generally very positive. Lots of interest from end users. So I think I mentioned people like ADNOC and such like. Interest from companies who would want to be customers who would want to be using it as well. And interestingly, having, for example, very experienced rotary steerable experts come to the stand with very professional, in my opinion, stand and come and sort of critique the system. And it felt like, and again, it's very subjective, but it felt like there was nobody was saying this is crazy. Everyone was saying this is actually a good, it has good potential, and very interested in it. So I'd say I would hope, and it's part of that is that the industry needs it, and part of that is the fact that we've been doing some industry press to kind of build up that knowledge of Sabre, but generally good. And like I say, it helped for me personally. It helped looking in the eye of people who've run this before, and discussing how they got it working, and they did get it working. So for me, it gave me a lot of confidence to kind of look those guys in the eye and say, so that we know that the concept can work. Now it's a case of making sure that our, hopefully even better and ruggedized control system, when you add that onto the concept, will be a good system. So yeah, lots of follow-up, lots of interest, and we're certainly very, very, very pleased.
Thank you very much, Andrew. The next question asks, how many customers will be involved in testing Sabre?
Yeah, initially we are keeping it to, we've got two initially, and then we've got much more interest thereafter. So the ones we've been working with and selecting initially are ones who have operations where they can afford to do testing without it really impacting their operations. There's demand in many of the other regions as well, so we are kind of tempering that demand and going in the working with these selected customers because it's kind of good conditions for field testing, but there's continued demand after that. Yeah,
Perfect.
give some flavor. I don't know if that answers it fully, but yeah. Okay.
Perfect. The next one asks, how many days are the field tests in Norway expected to last? Will these be the final tests before commercial sales will start?
Okay, good question. We'll be there for almost 2 weeks. We've got booked, and we will. They'll be the tests. They're the tests pre going into the commercial test partners, and then those tests with the commercial test partners go from field testing into commercial test, into commercial phase thereafter.
And following on from that, a question really around the selective test partners, and the question asks if they're of a significant enough size that orders placed by them, will they be commercially meaningful, or are they just to validate the product?
Yep, good question. And yes, these, I mean, the customers, either one of those customers would probably be enough to get us going, be meaningful for sure. And yeah, I mean, definitely. Without giving too much away, but yes, definitely they're definitely meaningful and definitely with meaningful potential to keep us busy.
Perfect. Thanks, Andrew. What are the board's expectations regarding the rollout of the Sabre product? Do they expect that during 2023 sales that will reach such a level that the company will be able to be profitable at the pre-tax level?
So the expectations are that we roll out Sabre as 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 rapidly as we reasonably can. So we do want to scale up as quickly as we can possibly do so within the constraints that we have. So as to whether that will be in 2023, I think we'll cover that one. Do we cover that one later on? I can't remember.
I think the other point to make, Andrew, is that the FinCap analyst has not put any figures out there. It's under review, and as soon as we have significant sight going forward, obviously we'll be working with the FinCap analyst, and he'll be coming up with his own figures. So we want to put figures back into the market as soon as possible, but hopefully people can understand we're not there yet. But as soon as we are, we'll be updating the market.
And I think there's another question coming on, which will add a bit of flavour to that as well.
Perfect. That's great. Another question here. Methane capture or abatement is becoming a hot topic in the oil and gas industry, and I understand that ENTEQ's products are well suited for work in this area. Could you please explain why customers need ENTEQ's products to remove or capture methane during the drilling process?
Yeah, so the methane capture, it tends so what's happened at the moment is in certain areas of the world where you're doing mining, and it's often the case where the methane is drained pre-mining, and if you don't drain it pre-mining, when you mine, it will go into the atmosphere when you're mining. So what's then needed is a lot of lateral wells, and a lot of lateral wells that are drilled cost competitively. So that's where we come in. We have cost competitive products that can drill those wells, remove that methane that can then be captured and used. So the important thing is that we're not just capturing it and then releasing it to the atmosphere. Our customers can capture it and then contain it, and then you put it to good use. It could be used for clean power generation, or it could be used as torque, doing hydrogen. So using that essentially surplus methane for hydrogen generation. So but that's not we're not using our products, but we're enabling that through being able to gather that methane.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I understand that Sabre already performed some initial testing for its use for methane abatement. What kind of tests are those, and how do they compare to the other test results for the more obvious oil and gas industry?
So the testing we did was we ran the tools downhole. At that moment, but at that moment we were doing it in what we call passive mode. So we weren't actively drilling, but we were putting our equipment in the ground and in the well, and giving it some sort of good downhole time. And what that enabled us to do was we could then make some pretty positive design changes on the back of those tests that we did. We've confirmed that some of our systems worked well in a downhole environment. So in terms of those tests, it's more about putting the tool through its paces in those days. So in terms of how that compares to the more obvious oil and gas industry, we're putting it's the test that we're doing, and the testing that we've been doing is representative of oil and gas and methane abatement.
Perfect. And just sticking with methane abatement, does the company have an insight in the current size of the methane abatement market?
We've been it depends on which regions do it, but it can get to be a reasonable size. I won't put a number on it right now, but if we look at institutions like the Global Methane Initiative. They've got some good guidance on those markets, and we follow the GMI as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Just moving on, I noticed the relatively large upswing in the receivables balance. Does the company expect any issues or delays with collecting cash from the trade debtors?
I think I covered that question in my presentation. The answer is no, we don't expect any problems collecting it, and as I mentioned, we're collecting it as we speak.
I would say on those receivables, they're long-term payment plans. So these are structured payment plans that we have with our known customers.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Another question here: what size of the initial Sabre rental fleet is targeted for now?
Okay, so we've got an initial phase of tools, which is the 6, and then we will be building a fleet that we'll be expanding that quite considerably as within our means as soon as we can. Much more than the 6, but we'll be steadily building up. We're doing those plans at the moment for how we would build and how we would ramp up that fleet based on the supply chain and based on essentially how fast we want to accelerate, put our foot on the gas for building those tools. So there's actually a few scenarios there that we're working on.
Thank you very much. Could the company please provide an update on the expected set schedule for Sabre to be commercial?
Yeah, sure. So we like I say, we do the initial testing in. So caveat: this is a development project. Things can and do change, but like I say, we've got our call it known control system, and as well as the system that has worked. So we're planning for weeks rather than months for the Norway testing, and then all being well, testing with our customers in Q1 calendar year, that then goes into commercial, moves into commercial from there on.
Yeah, and the news flow, the RNS news flow will be, as expected, we'll be putting something out regarding how the initial Norway testing goes, and then we'll be amplifying that when we actually fully commercialize the 6 tools that we have with the current customer testing program.
Perfect, thank you. And slightly longer question, so do bear with. According to the balance sheet, some $5 million have been invested in Sabre Technology. Further taking into account the facility in Houston of $2 million and the net working capital balance, including cash of $7.5 million, results in a total invested capital of $14.5 million, which greatly exceeds ENTEQ's current market capitalization of some $8.5 million. This seems to imply that the market does not account for any future value for the Sabre technology. Could you please give us some thoughts on this observation, and why does the market seem to be unwilling to recognize the potential value of Sabre?
Yeah. Good question. So, I mean, look, I think obviously we would expect that once we've done the field testing, people will start to see it and see it and believe it more. But like I keep saying, or not keep saying, that's wrong. What, like I've said, is this, this is taking a system that has been proven to work, and we've ruggedized it. So, it is a new system, and I guess that's what people want to see, that's done the field trials and done the tests before committing to it. Yes, I think you're right. I mean, the question is, well, I mean, that's why I bought, because I can see the potential, and we can show you the potential. Yeah, you can see the potential market. We do believe, we as the board certainly believe in where we're heading, and I think what we've got to do is kind of keep proving, going through those proof points, so that the market will realise what we've been believing all along.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I know that during last year's ADIPEC trade show, Sabre attracted significant interest. How was the level of interest for Sabre this year?
Okay, I think I've covered that, but it's better than last year, I'd say. Last year I'd say people were interested and curious. Now I think they're interested and kind of, when can I have it? It's probably better.
Perfect. Andrew and David, I think that actually concludes the pre-submitted questions. You've answered them all, so thank you very much. As you can see, we received a number of questions throughout today's live presentation, and thank you to all the investors for submitting those. Could I just ask you to read out those questions and give responses where it is appropriate to do so, and I'll pick up from you both at the end.
Yeah, I can handle the first one. So the question is, can you discuss what's happening with the potential sale of the Houston office? I think I've covered that already. It is actively being marketed, and as soon as we receive an offer that reflects the true value of the site, we'll be making the appropriate announcements.
Well, okay, and then there's another question here on why the market for core MWD market became more competitive, and have conditions begun to improve with US rig count steadily rising. So what I would say is the MWD market is moving towards, certainly in the US, it's been moving towards sort of solid state sensors rather than traditional sensors. So I think that's the reason for the change in the MWD market is actually a change in technology. So yes, the activity has been there with US rig count rising. Like David says, we're not going to fund. We're not going to do. We need to put our cash where it's where it makes sense to put it to. Excuse me. So that's where we made that decision not to offer our equipment on terms. So so what that means is that we're not going to be sort of chasing that work. We'll still provide it, particularly to international customers, but we're not going to be in that solid state business, which is kind of increasing their market share. Okay, there's another point here. At one point, I recall XXT ENTEQ products were in use on 25% of rigs in North America. Could Sabre achieve a similar market share? What is therefore the revenue potential for when Sabre product is mature? So yes, the ENTEQ XXT products were and still are very much a high installed base on many rigs, and this is a good parallel. I mean, the Sabre, could it be on 25% of rigs? Absolutely. Could it achieve a similar market share? Absolutely. What's the revenue potential? We haven't got any numbers out there, but if you've got a 2 billion market and you have 1% of it is 20 million. If you have 2% of it is 40 million. If you have 10% of it is 200 million. So those are the sort of scenarios, back of an envelope scenarios that can be looked at. But what I would say is that Sabre market is very there's very few independent competitors. So I think there's strong market potential, and what we're doing is we're not rushing into the US, even though there's a large potential market there. We will only go in there once we know that we've got the product proven. Just because it's a small market, the news travels fast in that market, so we want to go in there fully ready.
Shall I take the next one? When do you expect Sabre to become cash flow positive, net of investment in the product, its manufacturer support, and working capital? And well, there's two aspects to that question. First of all, the whole project will be cash flow positive, dependent on the rental fleet that we get out there. And we've been stressing during this presentation that our current balance sheet, when we actually convert it into cash, gives us internally a pretty reasonable size rental fleet. And if we want to press the accelerator harder, we will obviously look at other sources of finance, and obviously our listing is one particular one. But on the kind of more micro level, the cost of production of a Sabre tool is
Well, let's go. Let's.
significantly lower. So we have a chance to be cash flow positive much more quickly than maybe some of our competitors.
Yeah. We don't want to be too commercially sensitive on that.
Absolutely not, but it is a very interesting dynamic.
Okay, do you anticipate international MWD sales recovering anytime soon? China, Middle East, etc. So yes, but like I say, we're being very disciplined on that. So we won't be offering credit terms for those because we don't want to tie up our cash in those lower margin markets or lower margin products. So we will take the opportunities as they come. We'll still look at them. We'll still chase them, but we're not going to be tying up cash in those deals. So that does limit it somewhat, but it's I think it's the right thing to do. Like I say, go back to it. You know, we've got a 150 million market that has 35 to 45 parties playing in it. It is a competitive market. You know, we'd be better and smarter to put our money in something where we have 6+ competitors playing and a 2 billion market. But we will support it. Okay, regarding margin on existing MOD projects, I assume the margins are better in China and also for specialized applications where durability of systems is necessary. Please could you comment? It depends. So existing MWD depends what it's being used for. The margins can be better for higher temperature, but remember the domestic produced products in China, although they may not be as reliable, are significantly cheaper. So it's an interesting dynamic in China. And like I said, if you go back to MWD, you've got 30+ companies, probably 10 of those would go and be servicing the China market. So it is a competitive market as well. Where it's less competitive is in the much higher temperature, and you're right there, the margins would be a bit better. So China are able to sort of drive down their supply chain as best they can. So that's always there, sort of hovering over you.
Okay, shall I take the next one? In the last 6 months, ENTEQ consumed approximately $3 million of cash. Now has 1.8 of cash and deposits left. Will you need additional capital to reach a cash flow positive position? I'll just reiterate what we've already said is that our balance sheet gives us the flexibility and liquidity to get where we need to be to get a decent sized Sabre rental fleet out there.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a specific reason why the testing is being conducted in Norway? So there are independent test sites that exist around the world. Norway is close by, and it's a hard rock drilling environment. So when we test it, we know that people will see that as being a credible test, and not as a meaningful test. So that's a couple of reasons.
Okay, next one. What was the reserve price on Houston property? I'd obviously rather not say, but people who were monitoring the auction saw that the highest bid was 2.1, and that didn't beat reserve.
Are we looking to increase the number of third party whose products we distribute? How are these agreements coming about? No, we're not looking to increase the number of third parties products we distribute. We will do it where it makes sense. So we're working with a partner to do this kind of downhole Wi-Fi. We work with them. So we would do it where it would help roll out the Sabre and help with that rollout. Was the Norway test always in the project plan? If not, what caused the change? The test plan was always in the project plan. Whether it was in Norway initially, it would not have been specified, but we've always had a test plan we've always had a test well in our plan.
Okay, I'll take the last one. Can you share any color on your balance sheet forecast for the Sabre commercialization and the risks that might trigger further funding requirements? Well, hopefully we've given enough flesh on the bones to say that the balance sheet is a very healthy one, and as you'd expect, we're working to convert all available aspects of that balance sheet into cash. The funding requirement, that is literally dependent on how far we want to press the accelerator, and we're masters of our own destiny from that point of view. So I think that.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say on that one is that could be a very good problem for us to have. So it may be that we have, I think we've explained that the market demands this product, or there's a reasonable demand. So I think it could be a very good problem, very interesting problem to have.
Right, that's the last question.
Yeah, Andrew, David, thank you very much for that. I think you've addressed all those questions from investors. And of course, the company will review all questions submitted today and will publish those responses on the Investor Meet Company platform. But just before redirecting investors to provide you with their feedback, which I know is particularly important to you both, Andrew, could I just ask you for a few closing comments?
Okay, I'll make a comment. Apologies for the background noise if you can hear it, but I'm in the engineering centre, so I must apologize. Thank you for some very good questions. Like I say, we're very excited by we're excited by many things, but I mean, I think we're very excited by the Sabre and what we are planning to do and where it could go. So we're very excited. Thank you.
Andrew, David, thanks once again for updating investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close the session, as you'll now be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order that the management team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of ENTEQ Technologies PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation, and good morning to you all.